Braves survive a wild doubleheader against the Mets and advance to the postseason. Do they have any hopes of taking down the San Diego Padres? We'll tell you on this episode of Braves Today. Yes, welcome on into Braves Today for Tuesday, October 1st. Your home for news, notes, and updates on your Atlanta Braves. I'm your host, Lindsay Crosby. You can follow me on Twitter at Crosby Baseball. He's Christian Rauh. You can follow him on Twitter at Christian S. Rauh, R-A-U-H. You can find all of our written work, bravestoday.com. That's the Braves Today Substack. And Christian, I want to get into what happened with Chris Sale and what we know as of now. I want to get into Braves versus Padres, who is going to start tonight. What are their chances of beating San Diego in San Diego? But first, we've got to talk about Monday. That was, I think if I was impartial, if this was two other teams playing, I would say game one was probably one of the games of the year. But because I'm a Braves fan and the Braves lost, that sucked. Great game. You hate how it ended, but the game itself was really good.
Yeah, that was a wild game. I think there was 4 or 5 times where I thought the game was over, and we were just surprised it just went the other way. Did you have in your bingo card that the Atlanta Braves bullpen was gonna give up 8 runs? Did you have that? I didn't. I sure did not. Did you have in the bull did you have in your cards that after yesterday we talked about possibly taking Ozzy Albies out of the second spot, that he'd go ahead and hit 5 RBIs, and then we talked about building a statue for him? Because I did not. I did not have any of that in my bingo card at all. So I want a new card first. And second,
Yeah.
I do think that that game was insane. I think it was arguably one of the best baseball games that I have ever watched, top 5 at least, because I'm sure there's one and other ones, but between postseason, regular season, you name it, that's a top 5 game for me. It was incredible, and unfortunately ended not the way we wanted to, but thankfully they had enough steam to get that final game and punch their ticket into the postseason.
Yeah. And I think what's hard about that game is everything went the way you wanted, right? Spencer Schwellenbach gave you
Man,
7 scoreless innings,
he's insane.
and he comes back out for the 8th. Joe Jimenez is warming up at the same time. So he's going batter by batter, and Jimenez is warming up along with him. And I think that's the right move. There was a little bit of criticism of Brian Snitker for not giving Joe Jimenez a clean inning. But I think knowing you had to play the doubleheader, you had to play a second game, and looking at the pitch count for Spencer Schwellenbach, because he was still in the 70s on pitches when that inning started. I think because of that, or I guess maybe he finished with 94, and that was a 10 pitch at bat. So he was at 84 pitches going into the 8th inning. I'm okay with leaving him in. I think it was the right move to leave him in and go batter by batter. I don't think they expected it to spiral that quickly. Joe Jimenez rushes in, 3 hits, 3 runs, doesn't record an out. Raizel Iglesias goes in there, a third of an inning. He gets 1 out on a sac fly, but he gives up 2 more runs. And then 1 run was charged to Schwellenbach. So all of a sudden, you're at 6 runs right here. And then, like you said, Ozzy Albies turns around, bases loaded double, clears the bases, gives you the lead back just for Francisco Lindor to go and hit the home run in the 9th to put the Mets back on top. Fun fact here, that home run from Francisco Lindor is the regular season play with the highest championship win probability added. It means your odds of winning the World Series. It's the regular season play with the highest championship win probability added since 2011. And if you remember, 2011 was that infamous, it's like consecutive games where the Rays are trying to walk off to get a postseason spot. The Braves have an extra innings collapse, that whole thing. But everything went right as far as the order, the pitching plan, and it still didn't work out. And I think that's the most frustrating part of game one is you did everything correctly from a moves you made standpoint, and you still didn't win.
Yeah, the biggest thing that I saw on social medias after the game while we were sitting in that break was most people were mad at Snicker for not leaving Schwellenbach in. And although I thought he pitched great, and I think that we have a star just being made in front of our eyes.
Mhm.
How can you not think that the Braves bullpen was going to be able to take care of the eighth and ninth inning? That has been the plan the entire regular season, and 99% of the time it's worked. So why would you not
Yeah.
expect it to work in game 161? So I think it was the right decision for them to take out Schwellenbach. You can make the argument of giving a clean inning to Jimenez or not. Fine, I get that. But how can you not want to put Schwellenbach back in at least to start the eighth if you're only at 80 pitches after what he's seen? He was efficient. That's one of his things that he's known for now is being
Yeah.
efficient. I think he only had what, two, 3-1 counts the entire game. So just a really impressive outing by Spencer Schwellenbach. And it's unfortunately that it ended the way it did, but this guy's gonna be great. And I can't wait to watch him pitch again. Hopefully we get to see him at least one more time this season.
Yeah. I will say, I did put this out on Twitter, I think on Saturday. I would have started Schoenbach on Sunday and saved Morton for Monday, with the idea being if Atlanta won on Sunday, you don't have to play both games on Monday. If because if New York won game one, which you probably would have just let them win game one, they'd have been in the postseason, would have been decided. And MLB kept indicating they were not going to make you play a game just for seeding. So I would have thrown Schoenbach on Sunday and given Morton Monday. They may have their reasons why they didn't want to do that, but either way, that's what happened. You end up having to play two. Now, game two, this is the big thing, okay? So Chris Sale gets scratched. And here is everything that we know about the Chris Sale situation. He has reportedly been feeling some random back tightness at different points in time this season. It's never stopped him from pitching. It came back up in the Cincinnati Reds game. That's why his velocity came down a little bit. So when they told us he didn't really have his fastball, or when he said he didn't really have his fastball, it wasn't entirely truthful, as in he didn't disclose the reason he didn't have that fastball was because of the back tightness. We did not know that until yesterday. And they were holding him for the elimination game. They did not think he was unhealthy and couldn't pitch. He told them all week, I am good to pitch. I can pitch. I can start when you need me to start. I am ready to go. And on Sunday, after that game, he went for a throwing session, just to last throwing session as part of his pre-start routine, make sure he's good to go for the next day. And that's when the back tightened up some more, got worse. And he did not think he was going to be able to start after that. Alex Anthopoulos comes out for the press conference yesterday between games, tells us Sale is scratched. Grant Holmes will be starting. Grant Holmes threw an inning and two-thirds on Sunday. He threw 21 pitches against the Royals. And this is not a complaint about Grant Holmes. Grant Holmes is a dog within all positive ways to say that. 53 pitches, 4 innings, 1 hit, 1 walk, 7 strikeouts. The hit and the walk both came in the 5th inning. He's a dude. I have no complaints about Grant Holmes whatsoever. In my mind, the mistake Atlanta made here is not counting on Chris Sale, because he told them he's been dealing with it at different times this year, and he's been able to make every start that they've asked him to make so far. The issue is not that. The issue was throwing Grant Holmes on Sunday when you had some sort of question about the health of Chris Sale. Okay. Now, again, if you throw Spencer Schwellenbach on Sunday, I don't think any of this even comes up. We never find out about Chris Sale's back until probably today, when he doesn't start the wild card game. But on Sunday, Dylan Lee, he threw 20 pitches. That was the first game he had thrown in 3 days. Aaron Bummer had not thrown in multiple days. Luke Jackson threw a grand total of 3 pitches that day. You had Jesse Chavez you could have thrown. You had options of guys you could throw that were not Grant Holmes. And I know that game, I think it was a 3-0 game when he was in. That game was, or 2-0. That game was rather close. But I'm sorry. You cannot, that's the mistake Atlanta made. You cannot throw Grant Holmes when you have any sort of question about the availability of Chris Sale, because Grant Holmes is your emergency starter. That's the
Yeah.
mistake Atlanta made.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. It was a head scratcher seeing him in there, and it was also a little head scratching seeing Reynaldo Lopez go in that second game as well. I'm sure we'll get to that in just a second. But can I just say that at the beginning of the season, Lindsay, could you have ever imagined that we would get down to the final end of the regular season? And I'd say the only way that this team makes it to the postseason, Lindsay, is if two rookie pitchers pitch their
Shove.
that just pitch their butt off to get into the postseason against the New York Mets, Spencer Schwellenbach and Grant Holmes. What would you have said if I said that's the only way that this team makes it? Not Spencer Strider, not Max Fried, not Chris Sale, two rookies.
If you had told me it was two rookies and didn't name who they were, I would not have picked those two guys as the rookies.
Right.
I'm like, oh, cool. AJ Smith-Shawver and Herson Waldrop started some games down the stretch for you. Cool. That's exciting. Not what I saw coming. And on Chris Sale, the updates that we have, we are recording this at 9:06 a.m. on Tuesday morning. The updates as of now, Snit said last night Chris Sale may not even travel with the team to San Diego. He may stay back in Atlanta for treatment and to throw to hitters, with the idea being if you advance out of the wild card, he would start game one of the NLDS, which would be against the Los Angeles Dodgers. We do not know whether or not he has made the trip. I've talked to some people. I do know, I can confirm that a trio of AAA pitchers, Ian Anderson, Bryce Elder, and AJ Smith-Shawver, who Snit mentioned are all in consideration for the start today. I can confirm all three of them made the flight to San Diego. I do not know if Chris Sale is on that plane. Just being honest, I do not know if he's already there. I do not know if he's on the plane. There's been a lot of rumors and speculation from Braves fans. I think it's wishful thinking, saying that Atlanta scratched Chris Sale so they could go ahead and send him to San Diego and he can be ready for the start tonight. I do not think that's going to happen. We will get official rosters at 1 p.m. I do not know if Chris Sale will be on there or not. We don't know. But we'll get to those starters in a minute. But that is where you are right now with Chris Sale. Are you worried about Atlanta's chances without him? Or do you think that their chances without him, like their chances, it didn't matter if he was in there or not, just because of how much more they were worked over San Diego in the last couple days?
I think that they're going to be fatigued. There's no doubt about that. This first game is going to be really tough, but how can you not be concerned about this team even more if you don't have the NL Cy Young pitching for you at one point in this wild card round?
Right.
No, I think that it's a huge concern to not have Chris Sale. Even if he's not 100%, he still looked okay, even though his velocity was a little bit down in that last outing. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough to get by, and I think it still would have been pretty decent. Now, I don't know how great he would have pitched now. Maybe the spasms got even worse. And obviously, I don't want him out there if he can't throw and if he's not healthy. But it's a huge concern. There's no doubt
Yeah.
about that, Lindsay, especially what you just had to go through on Monday when some of your expected starters, like Ronaldo Lopez, for example, came out in relief on Monday. So
Yeah.
no one, with the exception of Max Fried, who I assume is pitching either today or tomorrow,
Game
depending
two.
on what happens with the AAA stuff.
And they've not announced that, but he's lined up for game two. Starting last
Yeah,
Friday, he'd be lined up for game two, and Lopez would be lined up for game three. You use 9 different pitchers on Monday, including both Joe Jimenez and Raisel Iglesias twice.
twice.
Jimenez has 44 pitches in the last 3 days. Iglesias has 35. Pierce Johnson has 38. Daisabel Hernandez has 50 pitches in the last 3 days. Your bullpen, even Dylan Lee has 22, although he only got 2 pitches on Monday. Your bullpen is taxed right now, but you also don't need 5 starters in the postseason. So when you set your roster, you can choose an extra bullpen arm or two, whether it's moving a starter to the bullpen or it's just say you save Charlie Morton because he pitched on Sunday. Say you save Charlie Morton and you give his roster spot to a reliever. Like, you have options here. And I think that's reassuring that you get a chance to reconfigure your roster and you can find some healthy arms like John Brebbia out of AAA.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if a guy like Hernandez didn't make the roster because of his 50 pitches, and a guy like Brebbia steps up for Hernandez. So, yeah,
Yeah.
there's going to be some interesting names that are not appearing on that wild card roster, but when that comes out, and as you mentioned, 1 o'clock Eastern's the deadline for that, so we'll see when it does appear. But hopefully, we see the name Chris Sale sitting on there if he can pitch. But if they know that he's not going to pitch in any of those 3 games, then yeah, they need save his spot for one of those AAA pitchers or a reliever or whatever, because they're going to need all the help they can get against this Padres team. This Padres team is tough.
Hmm. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Let's jump into a quick break. When we come back, we will talk about this matchup, what to expect from the Padres, how Atlanta can counter that. We'll do all that next, right here on Braves Today. Welcome back to Braves Today. Lindsay, Crosby, Christian Rauh. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at Crosby Baseball. He's at Christian S. Rauh, Rauh. And again, all of our written work, bravestoday.com. I dropped this morning on the Substack an article about how you can beat the San Diego Padres. And I think what you need to know about this Padres roster and this Padres position player group is defensively, this is a pretty solid team. Jackson Merrill in center field is very good. Fernando Tatis Jr. in right is exceptional. Jurickson Profar in left. Manny Machado at third. Jake Cronenworth at second. Luis Ariz at first. Xander Bogaerts at short is probably your weakest link. He's only had to move over there because Ha-Seong Kim is hurt. But so you have speed from several of these guys. You have power from several of these guys. The defense is really good. But the biggest concern for me is Atlanta's offense being able to keep up with San Diego's offense. Because I think what people maybe don't realize about San Diego this year, and the fact that they traded for Luis Ariz should give you a little bit of a hint of this, but San Diego leads baseball in batting average this year. They also have the least strikeouts in all of baseball. They have a season batting average of 263 and a 17.7% strikeout rate. Only two other teams are below 20% in strikeout rate. Atlanta's batting average is 20 points lower, 243, which is MLB average. So they're going to put balls in play. They're going to make you be defensively sound. We feel like Atlanta's defense, with the exception of maybe Jorge Soler in right field, is pretty defensively sound. But they're going to make you make plays defensively, and you can't count on getting tons of strikeouts. And I think that's what I'm concerned about is Atlanta's strength arguably has been the pitching. You're not going to have that strength in game one. We don't know who the starter is. We'll break down those three options in a minute. But they are good at minimizing what Atlanta does well, and they have the ability to capitalize on what Atlanta at times has struggled with, and that is defense.
Yeah, and that is going to be a big issue. And we'll see if guys like Orlando Arcia can keep his glove going. I know his bat hasn't been the same, but we'll see if he can keep his glove going. Ozzy's defense is
Buster
obviously
Olney. I think, sorry to interrupt. I think it was ESPN's Buster Olney. Maybe it was Kylie McDaniel. One of the two of them had a tweet during the games yesterday about how bad Orlando Arcia has been offensively this year. And we're like, okay, great. National people are realizing what we've realized about how tough his bat is this year. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, it's not hard to determine how bad it is. All you gotta do is go to league leaders and then go to the bottom of the thing and you find Orlando Arcia. It's unfortunate,
Yeah.
but that's just how it is. Yeah, no, it's gonna be a big issue. And we talk about the game one starters. That's gonna be something that is gonna set the tone. And this is a wild card round that's only 3 games. And game one is more important than any other playoff round because you're only playing 3 games. It certainly sets the tone. It's very hard to come back 0-1. If you don't lose, if you do lose the first game of the playoffs, the only way that you can make it to the next round is going 3 full games. So it's going to be a really tough challenge. The San Diego team is they got a chip on their shoulder because they have been told for the last couple seasons that they have been a good team and they haven't been able to make the next round. They had to deal with the Juan Soto drama, all that good stuff, and they couldn't make the next step. This season they finally did. They were very close to even actually winning the National League West against the Los Angeles Dodgers. This is a
Yeah.
very, very tough team. Might be the toughest team in all of the wild card round between the American and the National League. And unfortunately, the Braves got them lined up in the first round of the playoffs after having to fly across the country after playing 2 games on a Monday. They're going to be fatigued. They're going to be tired. It's going to be a tough game, but can they overcome it? Because you know what, Lindsay? What have they done all season?
They've they've persevered. They've done it. And last night, Matt Olson talked about that. The adrenaline's going to be running. He's like, we don't care. We're
That's
going to
fair.
go out there. We're going to play. And the playoffs are. I do think there's something to be said for in the postseason. You're sometimes maybe a little bit better able to put some of those physical concerns, the fatigue and things like that, out of your mind and still perform closer to what you would do if you were not fatigued in the regular season, right? This is what you have worked all season to do, is to get into the postseason. And I do feel about that. These three starting pitcher options: AJ Smith-Shawver, Ian Anderson, Bryce Elder. How are you configuring this pitching staff to try to figure out who should start game one and how you should do this with those three guys as your options?
If those are my options, then I would love to see Ian Anderson take the ball to start game one. I think that if you just if you have to set a tone some way somehow, you take a guy who has postseason pedigree, who arguably has some of the best postseason moments in Braves recent memory, of course out of those three, and give him the ball to set the tone. So if I'm going with any of those right off the bat, Ian Anderson's the guy I'm handing the ball to for pitch one.
Yeah. And to recap some of this here, has not appeared in the majors since 2022. He had Tommy John surgery. He's been rehabbing in the minors this year. So far in Gwinnett, he made 10 starts, 3-2 with a 3.96 ERA, struck out 53, walked 27, and 52 in the third innings. But talking about that postseason pedigree, Ian Anderson, surprisingly, in the organization right now, he is one of the most accomplished postseason pitchers this team has. 6 postseason starts. He's only given up runs in 2 of them. He's 4-0 with a 1.26 ERA in the postseason. He struck out 40 in his 35 and 2/3 innings. And I will always remember, I was fortunate enough to, as a fan, attend game 3 of the 2021 World Series. In the rain, he gave the Braves 5 shutout and hitless innings against the Houston Astros. And while he has not appeared in the majors in a while, I think there is a scenario, because you have extra rotation spots. You can steal one of those 5 rotation spots for a reliever. And then after that, you can piggyback Ian Anderson and AJ Smith-Shawver. And because you don't know, again, you don't know what Ian Anderson can give you as far as length. You don't know how good he could possibly be, because he hasn't done this in a little while. But I think the combination of those two players can, in a perfect world, maybe you get 3 or 4 innings from each, right? If you can get 4 innings out of Ian Anderson and 4 innings out of AJ Smith-Shawver, then you only have to cover 1 with your bullpen. And that's the break that you need. The concern I have is if you decide we're going to go with the experience and we're going to go with Bryce Elder. He faced San Diego this year on May 19th. We lost 9-1. He gave up 7 runs, 6 earned on 9 hits and 3 walks in 3 innings. Couldn't get it out in the 4th inning. We had to relieve him early, and he got blown up. And his ERA this year at the major league level is just atrocious. I want to say it's a 6.52 in 10 starts. The only time that I want to see Bryce Elder on the mound is if it is such an absurd blowout that we are just trying to get it to the point where we can use a position player, right? And hey, if we are down or up by 10, sure, yeah, throw him out there, let him cover a couple innings and just eat a couple innings. But other than that, I don't want to see Bryce Elder on the mound. I want Ian Anderson or AJ Smith-Shawver or both. Piggyback him.
Yeah, if Elder is gonna be on that roster, I think he needs to be, like, the last hope for the roster, the last pick, because, maybe he's the replacement for Chris Sale or something if they figure out that Sale can't go, because I agree with you, and it's unfortunate that we talk like that on Elder, but how many chances have we gave him this season, and it just hasn't
Yeah.
showed up? You can only go so many times before you finally figure out what to do with him, and the Braves haven't figured that out yet, but hopefully that they don't decide to give them one last shot in the postseason as a starter. I do think Ian Anderson would be the right pick out of those 3. I would love to see him maybe go 1.5 tops through the order and
Yeah.
then go to
That's all
AJ
I'm asking for.
Smith-Shawver. And that I think that would be great. I think that because you got to find a way against this Padres offense, as you mentioned, Lindsay. They don't strike out much. They at least put the ball in play. You got to find a way to confuse them a little bit, make them guess. And if you have the same pitcher out there for 2, 3 times for the rotation, they're good. They can capitalize on that stuff. So if you're going to go out and throw a couple of AAA starters out there for the first round in the first game, then you should probably be pretty quick with it. So yeah, I agree with you. 3, 4 innings tops from each of these guys would be the best that you could go. But I wouldn't even be shocked if that was even less. You know, give them one time through the order, and then it's time to pull the plug and move on. And I think that still would be enough to save your bullpen.
Yeah, and you have options. You have out of the bullpen, you have Aaron Bummer, who only threw yesterday. And I want to say he threw under 20 pitches. I closed that tab already, but I want to say he threw under 20 pitches. And then obviously you can still configure the roster to add different guys to get healthy arms, guys off the 40-man roster that can throw innings today. I expect to see John Brebbia up simply because they need a guy who can throw. He'll take one of those rotation spots. And we'll see what happens. Charlie Morton would be on a throw day, similar to how Ronaldo Lopez was on a throw day. Instead of throwing a bullpen, he came out and threw it live in a game. I don't know if Atlanta's going to go to Charlie Morton in relief for an inning. I worry more about that with a veteran like Morton, who's never been a reliever, than I do about a guy like Ronaldo Lopez, who was a reliever just last year and knows how to get ready for that type of appearance. I don't think they'll use Morton in relief, but you never say never. You never know what's going to happen here because this is literally an all hands on deck situation like it has been now for about 3 days. Final thoughts before we make picks. What you got for me?
I'm excited for the series. I think that it's going to be a tough one. I think hold on, strap in, folks, because it's still going to be a really good series. But
Mhm.
just remember, they what they've gone through so far this season, especially just yesterday with that doubleheader, them traveling, it might get rough, but they can overcome things. We have seen that before. If they can win this series, the whole narrative of them being fatigued, them having to travel, will just show that they persevered. But if they don't, it unfortunately will probably become one of those excuses. Let's not make an excuse. This team has played great baseball all season long, and they're going against a very good baseball team in the San Diego Padres. Should be a very good series.
Yep. Agreed. I don't really have anything to add off of that. Okay. All right. Making picks in this series. 2 games, 3 games. Who wins? What you got?
It's gonna be tough, and as I mentioned, I think it's Atlanta Braves have overcome a lot, but I think that we finally ran into that brick wall with that one. So I'm gonna go with the San Diego Padres winning this series. Sorry, folks, but I think that's where we're at in this one. But I'm gonna say they do it in 3 games. I think that the Braves can get away to win 1. I don't know if it's tonight because I have no idea what goes on with those AAA pitchers, but I think that the Padres will win in 3.
Yeah, I think I have Padres in 3 as well. I don't think Atlanta takes tonight's game. I think they probably get another Maximus Freed start, beating Joe Musgrove in game 2, and then I think Dylan Cease probably out pitches Ronaldo Lopez in game 3, and the Padres take it in 3.
Now,
Let's hope we're wrong, folks.
if they win tonight, all odds are everything's off the table, though.
Yeah, this is the tough one. If you can win tonight, you can win the series.
I'm
This
with
is
you.
the tough one.
Yep.
Obviously, only a 3 game series. Losing one game puts you way behind the 8 ball, but this is the this is the hardest one to win, and this is the one where you've got to find a way to make it happen, and you've got to do it through dominant pitching performances. You gotta be able to get your starter and your piggyback through a lot of innings and save the pen. So we'll see if that can happen. But either way, we are back tomorrow morning to recap what happened late tonight with this game. We will have takeaways after the game on bravestoday.com. So go subscribe to the Substack so you get it in your email as soon as we drop them. In the meantime, if you're watching on YouTube, do us a favor, leave us a comment down below, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when we drop tomorrow's episode. And if you're on audio, leave a 5-star review. Either way, tell your friends all across Braves country they could come listen to Braves Today. And until next time, this has been Braves Today.